we just want to encourage folks to take care of themselves during this program. So if you feel the need to move around, get up, stretch, drink some water, please do that and feel welcome to do that. And so finally, while the museum is closed to the public, we are still available online. So we've been providing a lot of programs like this through our JANM at Home initiative. So you can check that out on our website. And you can find more information about JANM at Home there. We have another Contested Histories talk this Saturday and an educators workshop and open house on Tuesday, as well as some other programming coming up that's all really exciting. So please check that out. I'll be putting all that information in the chat and also sharing more at the end. And now I would like to pass it off to Yoko Nishimura, and I'm going to pass it along to you now, Yoko.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Yoko Nishimura, project manager for the Discover Nikkei website at the Japanese American National Museum. Thank you very much for joining us for the first virtual poetry reading today. If you are not familiar with Discover Nikkei, it is JANM's international community-based web project with major funding from the Nippon Foundation, launched in 2005. The site was created in 4 languages, English, Japanese, Spanish, and Portuguese, and share unique Nikkei story around the world, not just in the United States, but also including Canada, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Mexico, and even places like Cuba. Stories are published daily, Mondays through Saturday, with very diverse and unique topics. Some stories are historical, some are more contemporary, some are academic. We even publish a weekly cartoon and a fictional series story by Naomi Hirahara, and short stories by others as well. So in December 2016, we launched the Nikkei Uncovered, a poetry column, which is curated by today's host, Tracy kato-kiriyama, and published on the 3rd Thursday of every month. So, so far, over 80 poets have participated. The latest column was published this morning, including a poem by Yamaguchi, who opened this program. So I'm very excited to welcome Tracy and 4 individuals who have previously published their poems as part of the column. So I hope you enjoy the program, and if you are interested in contributing your own poetry to Nikkei Uncovered, please let us know. So now I will ask Tracy to take over. So thank you. Enjoy the program.
Thank you, Yoko. Thank you, Joy. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to do this. I will tell you how excited I am. This is only the 2nd time in the last 3 months that I have dressed up. I showered for this. I had my head shaved, and I'm wearing lipstick. You know, this is very exciting. We're so excited. So we've been, without missing a month, just so delighted at both the response and especially the submission of beautiful writing, beautiful stories from literally around the world. And just hearing so many different Nikkei voices, it's beautiful to see what I feel is like just the difference between all the folks sharing their stories and their memories and their poems, and yet feeling very connected to every single one. So yeah, I'm gonna do the prep again for all of you who just joined in. In a minute, we'll be doing a little toast. I have hosted many times in the past a thing called Whiskey Writing Wednesdays in homage to my bachan, who drank whiskey every day. And as part of her health routine, she's very healthy. She lived to 102. So I thought we would, you know, do a little cheers later. So just prepare your beverage, whatever that may be. But I wanted to do a toast because I think that this is a really special occasion to not only go ahead and launch our first poetry reading, but to do so and not even question doing it online and not waiting for a moment where we will do it in person. I actually think that with all of the hardships, with all of the difficulties, with these adjustments and transformations in the way we're doing things, I think we've also seen how doing certain programs in certain ways has allowed more people to join in, to have access, and to be reached out to in ways that we normally couldn't if we're only doing something in physical, in-person space. And yeah, I do invite all of you to check out the poems that launched today. They are featuring two museum staff members, Joy Yamaguchi, who you saw at the beginning, and Vicky Murakami, who is also somewhere in there. We'll see them at the gallery view again. Really wonderful writing, and yeah, just really thrilled to involve some JANM staff as well. My name is Tracy kato-kiriyama, and my pronouns are she and they. I'm based in Los Angeles in the South Bay in Gardena, California. I'm a performer and a poet and a community organizer. And yeah, it was so fun to just start this process of reaching out to folks back in the fall of 2016. And we launched, and I believe we have the illustrious Amy Uematsu online with us today. We got to launch with Amy's work as well as Hiroshi Kashiwagi. And since then, we've had just the honor to have so many voices. And I do want to shout out some of the folks who have, you know, RSVP'd for tonight, some of the other Nikkei Uncovered poetry column poets, Jenny Kuida, David Maruyama, Kathy Masaoka, Maya Worrell, Janice Yen, Kyoko Nakamaru, Wataru Ebihara, Heather Nagami, Shisao Hata, and again, Amy Uematsu. And we're super thrilled too that we have folks joining from all over California, Altadena to San Bernardino, and we have folks also from Colorado, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Washington, and Japan. So welcome everybody. Tonight we are going to have 4 beautiful features. And I will read a brief bio before each of them share their set. And then we're going to do a little stretch moment later. We want you to feel like if you need to, go ahead and, you know, mute your video along with your audio. And if you need to, you know, get up, do your thing, go ahead, of course. And then we're going to have a short group conversation with the poets. We have a couple questions that we want to ask. And then we're going to have an open mic. So for any of you who are signing on right now and who would like to share a 3 to 4 minute piece, we'd love to invite you to go into the chat function in the middle bottom of your screen and just put open mic request. And if we have more than 2 to 3 people who requested to be on the open mic, we're going to do a lottery, and Joy will be tracking all of the names that are coming in, putting them onto pieces of paper, putting them in a very special hat, and revealing 2 to 3 names, depending on our time, towards the end. And then we'll close. So, yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Thanks, everybody. Lastly, 2 more things. If you do already know that you have a specific question for the poets, or a specific question for even just one of the poets, you can already put that into the chat as well, and we will be keeping track of those, so that hopefully we can accommodate some of those if there's time during our Q&A. Lastly, before we introduce our first feature, let's do a little toast, huh? I'm gonna, at the end of each set, I'm not gonna do a toast at the end of each set, don't worry. You can do your own toast, that's totally fine. But at the end of each set, I will invite folks to unmute your mic for a second so that we can hear applause. I've been a part of so many wonderful Zoom events that people do these beautiful performances, and And afterwards, you can tell people are like, yeah, but we don't hear anything. So I would love for the poets to be able to hear your applause, your snaps, your acknowledgments. So I'll remind you at the end of each set to unmute for like 5 seconds. And with that, I'm going to ask you to unmute right now. We're going to do just a, water, not water. Micah, I know, is joining us. One of our features, Micah Tasaka, is joining us all the way from Japan. It's 10 a.m. over there, so Micah, you might need something a little stronger. I don't know. So can we go to gallery view? Let's go to gallery view. So cheers. Thank you, everybody, for joining. To good health. Bye.
Cheers.
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 Bye.
You just have arms sticking out everywhere.
So, you may mute again.
Christian, yeah.
Where's Jenny?
Second.
I don't know if I muted myself. Okay, let's go back. All right. So thank you for joining in that. Hopefully you also got to see some faces in different screens for folks that you are related to out there. So I'm going to introduce our first wonderful, wonderful guest. We featured this artist in March of 2020. And we will provide links, or you can just go to the Discover Nikkei site and search for their names and look up their work. Courtney Ozaki is a creative producer based in Denver, Colorado. She's the founder of the Japanese Arts Network, JANM, a national network that provides access to resources and develops programs and platforms that support and strengthen visibility for Japanese and Japanese American artists in America. A professional taiko musician with over 25 years of experience, she has performed across the globe in the United Arab Emirates at the Dubai Global Village, as well as in other major cities across the United States, including the National Taiko Conference Taiko Jam. After receiving her MFA in Performing Arts Management from Brooklyn College, Courtney worked as a project manager and dance producer for Joyce Theater Productions, with whom she developed and toured new works with international choreographers, designers, and dancers. Courtney is passionate about the melding of ideas and the integration and interdependence of art sectors. She is motivated by the impetus that an inclusive arts culture leads to a more productive and empathetic society. I got to meet Courtney in Denver while doing some workshops and have been impressed just witnessing and watching them ever since. And I'm so excited to introduce them now. Take it away, Courtney Ozaki.
Thank you, Tracy. Komorebi. A glint of light catches her eye, sitting beneath the tall oak tree, atop roots that were laid by her grandfather. Warm rays cover her face as they break through the tree's emerald green leaves, a blanket of warmth from the sun. Natsukashi, she recalls her grandmother's love. Weathering harsh winters and dust-laden winds, this towering friend has stories to tell. Resilience deep within its rings. Seeds of hope were planted in the earth. Life thriving in a barren landscape. So last year, first of all, thank you so much to JANM and Discover Nikkei for inviting me to participate in this. I'm a rather quiet poet. I don't typically share in a public environment. And thank you, Tracy, for your interest in my art. Last year, I was able to travel to Crystal City, Texas, where my grandparents and uncle were held during World War II. My grandfather was a successful businessman in Lima, Peru. And he moved there from Japan about a decade prior and took over his uncle's parquet floor making business. And after the start of the war, he was kidnapped by the American government with the original intent to exchange him and others like him for American civilians who were held captive abroad. So he and my grandmother and my uncle were placed in an Immigration and Naturalization Service INS camp with other Latin American, Japanese, Germans, and Italians in Crystal City. My family was separated. My grandmother was, I believe, 8 months pregnant and had a 2-year-old in tow, and they had to find their way to my grandfather from Peru to Crystal City. After the war, they were designated as illegal aliens in America, and they could not go home to Peru. So when I wrote this poem, it was inspired by that story and several things. My visit to Crystal City, seeing what remained of a place so significant to such a dark time in my family's history. And I was also inspired by the stories that have been shared with me by community members over time about incarcerees and how many times they've built something from nothing in the camps. I was also recently on a virtual pilgrimage for Manzanar that was hosted by San Jose JCL, and I learned about the fish ponds that were created by the Manzanar Fishing Club. And I learned about the beautiful bonsai gardens that were built in the camps as well. So the resilience of all who were incarcerated, but especially that of my grandparents, as they were constantly forced to rebuild from nothing, building layers upon layers of resilience, inspired me to write this poem. When my family left the camp and went to Denver because a distant cousin was able to sponsor them there, they found work and saved money to take over a local grocery store and build a stable life for their family. Looking back at what happened always invokes a melancholy feeling for me, but the rings of resilience that my grandparents formed continually give me strength, especially during this time of uncertainty. Thank you.
Mute, unmute. Our appreciation. Courtney, thank you so much. It's really exciting to have you on this program, but also to just really watch all the amazing work that you're doing out of Denver to link people who are Nikkei artists. It's got to be quite a feat to do that kind of outreach and to especially highlight folks in your own region, which I don't think we always get to see folks out of the Colorado area. So, really appreciate all the work that you're doing and look forward to having you join us again in conversation in a few minutes. So thank you again. I am also tasked with reminding everybody that this is being recorded and will be posted. So if you would like to remain anonymous during this program and not appear in the recording, we'll ask you to please turn your camera off and also rename yourself. So the renaming is the little ellipses at the upper right-hand corner next to where you mute or unmute yourself. It's in a blue box, and you can go there and scroll down to rename yourself. Okay, otherwise, we will have your beautiful faces on the recording, and we'll get to enjoy those again later. Again, I want to remind you, if you want to sign up for the open mic, to please do so in the chat. And if you have any questions for Courtney or the other folks, please go ahead and put that into the chat as well. I am, again, excited to introduce our next poet. In the slate, she is the youngest of our features tonight, has allowed me to acknowledge that they are 15 years old. I'll just say that I have known Maiya since she was a teeny little baby. I couldn't find the photos of me holding her as an infant, but her parents did send me, and Maya said I can show this. There is a particular photo I wanted to share. I've seen Maya perform since she was a little chibi, little kid, and looked like this. And you will see she is all grown now. But I had to show that. I mean, adorbs, right? Goodness gracious. So, Maiya Kuida-Osumi is a 9th grader at Culver City High School. She has been playing basketball with the Venice Sparks since kindergarten. Last year, she started running and joined the cross-country team at CCHS. She has been playing taiko since 2nd grade and recently joined LA Mugen Taiko, led by Tomomi Hongo. Maya and her friend, Tula Kudashige, are part of the Sister Friends and have performed at Tuesday Night Cafe over a dozen times. She enjoys going to Obons every summer and eating shave ice and spam musubi. Oh, we will miss that this year. But without further ado, we introduce Maiya Kuida-Osumi.
Hello. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. So I have 3 short poems I'd like to share today. And the first 2 poems I wrote a few years ago about Obon. And just very briefly, Obon is a Buddhist tradition where you celebrate and honor your ancestors. So sadly, it looks like Obon season won't happen this year, but I'd still like to share a few poems. So the first poem describes my memories of Obon, and I originally wrote this envisioning Gardena Obon and Senshin Obon. So this one is called Dancing in All Directions. Families young and old gather around the Yagura, waiting for the dancing to begin. The kana starts us off. The crowd inches forward in one fluid motion. I look up. The sun is setting, our ancestors' lanterns swaying and lighting the circle. I look down. The streets chalk-ridden. I hear the clicking of geta and the fluttering of kimono. Toddlers stagger under flying hoppy coats, frantic parents chasing after. I look left, following elders who lead the way. Bachi in hand, we pound the drum. I look right. Grandparents lounge in beach chairs with a front row view. Parents on picnic blankets and grandchildren covered in shaved ice. No matter which way I look, I know I'm home. Okay, that was my first piece. Okay, so my next poem is specifically about an Obon song called Tankobushi, also known as the coal miners' dance. So this song has 5 main dance moves, I guess you could say. So, and this song, or this poem is about how Tankobushi, in a way, symbolizes the fight for justice. So this poem is called We Keep Dancing. Okay. Tankobushi is like the struggle. We dig and we dig. We search for communities in need of support. We offer a helping hand. And when we're faced with innocent people being murdered, a lying president, and a global pandemic, we throw it over our shoulder and keep dancing. But sometimes we get tired, so we take a step back, wipe the sweat off our brow, and keep dancing. Even in the toughest of times, we push and we push. They hold us back, but we keep pushing. And when the struggle ends, we dust off our hands and keep going. The song is never over. We keep dancing. Okay, so this last poem is about my name, and I wrote it for a school project, and it's called Just Maiya. And just for a reference, my name is spelled M-A-I-Y-A. But before I finish this last one, I just want to say thank you, Joy and Tracy and everyone, for this opportunity to share some of my pieces and get the chance to listen and learn from so many other amazing poets as well. So this one is called Just Maya. 5 of us in social studies, 4 of us in PE, 1 of me. Not Maiya, not Maiya, just Maya. Don't let the I fool you. My name is not some riddle for you to solve, not a game of who can pronounce it right, just Maya. Maya Angelou's namesake, an honor at the least, but throw in the I to make it Japanese, just Maya. And amidst the chaos lies Grace, my middle name Grace, simple and elegant, peaceful and calm. Grace Lee Boggs, an Asian American activist, strong like the roots of an oak, a break from the mayhem. Now, don't get me started on hyphenated Japanese last names. You can't handle the rich history, struggle embedded in each syllable, every ancestor locked behind barbed wire, too much for you to handle, just Maya. Confused substitutes, constant misspellings, crippling self-esteem. Not, your opinions don't matter to me. Think what you want, my identity, my culture, my name. Just Maiya Grace Kuida-Osumi. Thank you.
Unmute. Appreciation. Thank you, Maya. Oh, love it. Love all of these works from all of you. That last one in particular, it made me think about one of my favorite exercises for anyone to do in terms of storytelling and writing is to do a poem about your name. And I invite everybody who's on this to write a poem about your name and send it in. We love to read those. And I always think about how I actually hope for all Nikkei to have difficult names. I feel like it was really identity forming for me to have an R, Kiriyama, and like the whole journey with that name. But ultimately, I feel like it made me reckon with myself and who I am. So I love long, complicated names. Maiya Kuida-Osumi. I love it. I love it all. I love it all. All right. So moving on to our third feature. This is going so fast. I have to say, especially because they gave us a very teeny short poem and they are really amazing and could go on and on. But I met this person back when they were a student in Riverside, and they eventually went on to curate this festival. I know I probably have to watch language for JANM, but it was called the Women F Stuff Up festival. And I was so psyched to be a part of that and to share some work and just to be with all of these radical, queer, amazing people. So I'm just so excited. And that Micah moved on to go all the way to Japan, start a whole new life, and still kept writing and agreed to submit and let us feature some of their work in our Nikkei Uncovered column. So really excited for you to be with us, Micah, all the way at 10:34 a.m. in your region. So I will read your bio. Micah Tasaka is a non-binary, queer, mixed Japanese poet from the Inland Empire, California, currently teaching English in Fukui Prefecture, Japan, as a member of the JET program. They received their undergraduate degree in creative writing from the University of California, Riverside. Micah's first full-length manuscript, Expansions, was released on Jammy Press in 2017 And you can see that more of their work on micahtasaka.com. And please link to their poem as well as to the other poets on our site. Without further ado, Micah Tasaka.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you to JANM for allowing me to do this. And hi to all my family and friends who are watching right now. This is called Tree, and it's written in response to a question I got asked over and over in Japan. Why didn't my dad teach me how to speak Japanese? So Tree, why my father didn't teach me Japanese. A story. The bomb fell in Hiroshima, but ricocheted across the Pacific. In Poston, Arizona, it split a nerve down the center of a tree, severing root from leaves. Leaves deny their root. Trees provide no shade across a battlefield. War displaced a torn limb, still spewing blood. Blood sick with amnesia, across generations lost. My family roamed deserts, forgot the language to tell, would rather not speak. Speak about it no more, while in Nippon it rains. Heavy heart from ceiling drips, dissolving to Tommy straws, falls through the floor. The floor cannot hold us up. We seep right through. In basement puddles, attempted rebuilding a water forgotten molds 1,000 stories. Unaware of ancestral tongues, still stinking of the dew that forms on lips unused, performing a surgery. Surgery and art crafted from these years of wondering why we wandered so far, might reconnect the veins, retrace the outline of a tree drawn on rice paper, cannot hold up to moisture, translucent to light, a fixture pieced together, each leaf remembers the feeling of branches. Branches, a sound structure, we can only hope to assemble what was never licked by tongues that awkward form the shape of a word that shapes a feeling, burning inside of guts. When looking across a field of trees still smoldering, questioning why the match was ever dropped. This is called A Lost Thing. When I finally landed on this shore, a belly full of hope and promise, I found instead that half my body dropped a bomb on the other half my body, and parts of me are still dying in the aftermath. 3 generations later, my skin peels off, then regrows every night. I cover my bed in roses for every dying cell, asking this land to nourish me, but I set fire to my hometown to stand against a red sun that forgets me. Me, a lost thing, still cleaning up the mess left from a diaspora I didn't ask for, but one that granted me an existence that feels as if it's expiring every day, that I stay so locked on an island, floating on an ocean, 5,000 miles away from. But what is home when I am rain, tossed by wind, showered on some dry patch of dirt that will never bear any memory? My grandpa finally told stories of the farm on his deathbed, the harvest good, the air full of orange blossoms and cicada screech, and he ate mochi with his fingers. Never spoke of an ocean that swallowed the way back, while I'm caught in a knowing that my country dropped a bomb on the other half of my country, and I'm standing on the ocean trying to remember the sound of my own name. I wait to drown. And this is last poem, hopefully a little happier. This was the other poem published on Nikkei Uncovered, and it's called On Learning an Ancestral Language for the First Time. Okay. On tongue tips, a sloshing of liquid, not quite yet water drips. a languid body still hoping to form each sound of a river, as clearly as if it always knew the language, buried with old bones that never told a story while living. The living retrace their steps, lick up an entire ocean, fill their bodies with salt and sand and fish and still anger at the ache of hunger. So when the rain comes, let the flood bear a resemblance to the homeland that runs its fingers through my hair each night as I sleep, until such skullcap field is weeded into garden, so rich in blossoms and full of useful roots, I might remember a word or two with this slimy tongue that slithers easily into sentence as if I always knew where I came from. Thank you so much.
Micah! Micah!
Happy birthday!
Your family shouting out to you. You hear that, Micah? So beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that was so awesome. And I'm glad you unleashed the tears. You know, like, our poetry is to allow us to speak what we need to speak. And I think it's such a lovely thing to be asked these questions that folks might feel are simple questions. But the lovely moment is to be like, okay, hang on a second. I can't engage in the 6-hour dialogue that I need to with you right now. Give me a minute. I'm going to write something and then speak it out to you in 2 minutes to convey a little bit of my emotion about that question that you asked me that seems so simple. So I want your poems and Maiya's poems and Courtney's poems to just keep doing that, just allowing yourselves to dive into the hard but simple and simple but hard questions. Thank you so much. I like getting emotional on Zoom calls. You know, you're all the way in Japan. Like, let's just toast to your birthday, first of all. Happy belated. And so wonderful. We are also super thrilled, and we said this in the prep call. We are all, of course, very honored to be on this inaugural poetry reading through JANM with Discover Nikkei all together. But I think we all very much so collectively agreed we're especially honored to be on this particular reading, this virtual stage with our wonderful, amazing Mitsuye Yamada. We just can't say how thankful we are that you joined us, Mitsuye. Yeah, unmute for that, right? Come on, let's just already. You're excited. I see you in my little box on the side. Look at that beautiful smile. All right, so.
It's okay, I've got it.
Okay, I want to give honor by reading this entire bio. So, Mitsuye was featured in our February 2019 column, and we are just thrilled. Mitsuye Yamada was born in Kyushu, Japan in 1923. She grew up in Seattle, Washington. In 1942, when Mitsuye was 17, her family was among 120,000 persons of Japanese ancestry who were forcibly removed from their homes and relocated to concentration camps for the duration of the war. She received her BA from New York University, her MA from University of Chicago, and an honorary doctorate from Simmons College. She has lived in the Midwest, New York, and California. She taught English, creative writing, literature, and Asian American studies at colleges throughout Southern California. Camp Notes and Other Writings, a combined edition of her first 2 books, was most recently published by Rutgers University Press in 1998. Her writings focus on her bicultural heritage and on women and human rights. Her work has been translated into several languages, and she has given readings and lectures across the United States. She is the founder and coordinator of Multicultural Women Writers. Mitsuye was a subject of Mitsuye and Nellie, Asian American Poets, a documentary that aired nationally on PBS. In addition to her work as a writer, Mitsuye has dedicated her life to human rights. She coordinated a local chapter of Amnesty International and served on the AIUSA Board of Directors for 6 years. She also worked with interfaith prisoners of conscience. A political biography called Nisei Radicals, The Feminist Poetics and Transformative Ministry of Mitsuye Yamada and Michael Yasutake, written by Diane C. Fujino and published by the University of Washington Press, is to be released this year. It is about Mitsuye's political life and that of her brother, the Reverend Michael Seiichi Yasutake. We are thrilled to have you. We are honored to have you. Thank you so much. Take it away, Mitsuye Yamada.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. I'm just overwhelmed. That was wonderful. And hi, everybody. This has really been quite an experience. I've never read before in a Zoom. I've never done a Zoom reading before. So today I will read 3 poems from my book, Camp Notes, and several from my last book of poetry that was published last year, Full Circle. And this first one is a very short throwaway poem, and the title of it is What Your Mother Tells You Now. Haha ga ima iu koto, sono uchi ni wakatte kuru. What your mother tells you now, in time you will come to know. So, as Tracy said, I was born in 1923, so you could kind of do the math. So in 1942, I was a teenager in high school when my family was forcibly removed, as she said, from our homeland, from my home, and sent to Minidoka concentration camp in Idaho. And we didn't know then that we would never return to our beautiful Seattle home as a family. I was quite interested to hear about Crystal City because my mother and my brother, my family, were in Crystal City at one time. The next poem is called Watchtower. The watchtower, with one uniformed guard in solitary, confined in the middle of his land. I walked towards the hospital for the midnight shift. From the rec hall, from the long body of the centipede with barracks for legs, came the sound of a live band playing Maria Elena, You're the Answer to My Dreams. Tired teenagers leaning on each other, swayed without struggle. This is what we did with our days. We loved and we lived just like people. So many of life's milestones occurred when we were in camp. And so the next poem captures the time when I was in camp for a year and a half, and I was going to leave for the first time in my life. I was moving out and leaving my mother for the first time in my life. And so this poem is entitled The Night Before Goodbye. Mama is mending my underwear while my brothers sleep. Her husband taken away by the FBI. One son lured away by the army. Now another son and daughter lusting for the free world outside. She must let go. The war goes on. She will take one still small son and join Papa in internment to make a family. Still sewing, squinting in the dim light, in room C, barrack 4, block 4, she whispers, remember, keep your underwear in good repair. In case of accident, don't bring shame on us. I do think that my camp experience made me politically aware at a young age. And then so subsequently, I have been very active in Amnesty International for many years. And in my work with Amnesty, I was reminded that in the US, I was free to write without any consequences, while writers around the world and some countries were imprisoned for their writings and their beliefs. And so the next poem is titled, In Some Countries. In some countries, poets are taken seriously in high places, and writing poems may be a crime. In those countries, poems are cryptograms, encoded, must be skinned and probed. Offending poets like Mila Aguilar are arrested and tortured. Undercover bloodhounds expose metaphors. In some countries, writing poems is deadly business. In my country, poets are free to read poems in bookstores, cafes, bars, and other low places, trotted out as window dressing at presidential inaugurations. But most of the time, poets could be speaking in tongues. In my country, poets like Pat Parker are ignored to death. This poem was always intended to be a bit wry because I felt so secure in my own country to speak up freely. But in recent years, I really realized that freedom of the press has been under attack. We really do. We must stay vigilant and not take our freedoms for granted. So in that vein, the next poem is about keeping one's voice. It is a new poem called Nevertheless. And you might recognize some of the lines in it. It all started in 8th century BC Ithaca, when Penelope is told to get back to her quarters because speech is the business of men, and continues on to 21st century AD United States Senate, when Elizabeth is told to be silent. She was warned, but nevertheless, she persisted because the air has no gender. So the Nightly News inspired the following poem. The title of it is Ruler. My ruler is broken, has crooked lines, rough edges, splintered dimensions, cracked values, questionable standards, angers friends, befriends enemies, shows signs of dubious nature, never measures up. Unfortunately, the world has taken a darker turn than when I wrote that poem just last year. When we feel angry or anxious or even despairing, we can channel our creative energies. And that was really beautifully demonstrated today by the young poets. So we have the power to make things better, hopefully, right? So my next poem is called Pareidolia. The definition of pareidolia, is just kind of a strange word, is the human tendency to see meaningful patterns as faces and animals in random places like clouds in the sky and rock formations. I think of this as a metaphor for a capacity to hope. And so the title of this poem is Pareidolia. See the dark shadows on the full moon? Try squinting and look hard, Father said. You will see a rabbit pounding mochi with a mallet into a wooden usu. Yes, yes, I see. The white rabbit with a pink nose. 100 years ago, Father heard the rhythms of mochitsuki from across the ocean and followed the full moon, promising great things to come. Hope in abundance with celerity. My father, born on the year of the rabbit, would welcome the masses pushing our borders today, carrying bags filled with dreams, seeking shadows on the full moon. And now we come full circle, and I will close with the poem titled Sphere. This poem is about the creative spirit that was demonstrated so beautifully today. Sphere. If my world were a brain-shaped island lined with silk chiffon, I would straddle it and fly into the open stratosphere. Gentle breeze will raise fine hairs on my cheekbones as I sing in a voice I never had, a lovely tune I just made. I will fulfill every single ineffable moment of life left in my body. Thank you. And thank you, Tracy and Joy, for this wonderful experience, you know, and inviting me to read today. Being here and hearing all of you young poets, you're just, oh, you're so young and beautiful. It's so inspiring. It gives me so much hope for the future. Thank you very much.
Bravo. We love you, Mitsuye.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Oh, me too. Thank you so much. Y'all, if you don't know, you need to know now, right? You need to get this. It was so lovely. I was sneaking peeks at some of the poems while you were reading it. Yes?
Designed the cover. My daughter Hetty designed it.
Oh, shout out to Hetty.
She's a
Hey, Hetty.
Yes.
Hetty.
Definite shout out to Hetty. We coordinated so much together to make today happen. So we're so happy to have you, Hetty. But it was really lovely, Mitsu, to listen to your voice, but also sort of read these lines as you were going. And I feel like now when I read these again, I will have your voice with me. So it's just really special. So thank you so, so much for that.
It was wonderful to hear the young poets today. It was just...
They're amazing, right?
Oh.
So y'all, let's give a round of applause to Mitsu, but also to Courtney and to Maiya and to Micah. Like, let's huge round to all of them. We're gonna take a 1 minute stretch. So we were sort of in agreement, the team putting this together, that, you know, a lot of this, we're all probably sitting, right? And we do a lot of sitting, a lot of sitting. And if you're doing a lot of Zoom, you're doing a lot of sitting. So I like to do little like dance party breaks. But, you know, you can take this minute and do it however you want. But I'm just going to encourage people, you know, just at least get up and like, you know, just at least move around a little. We talked about the missing obon. So we could do sort of impromptu, you know, tankabushi. If you want to do it from your seat, that's okay too. You can do it from your seat, but you can just, you know, kind of get into the tankabushi with me. Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you know. Wish we had the taiko players to play some taiko as we get to do this. It's hard to do it without a circle, huh?
Karen Brooks.
We're going to just, you know, stretch it out, move it around for a minute, just like let yourself kind of get loose. If you have to do it in your chair, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, was that a minute?
That was beautiful.
Little teeny space. This has been such a pleasure. We have a couple questions that that we have, you know, we were curious to ask, but let's check the chat and see if folks have some other things. I thought that this was an interesting comment from Kathy Masaoka. All families must have talked about having underwear in good shape so as not to shame the family in case of an accident. Never could understand that. Oh, funny, fun. Let's see what else. I think we have a couple, maybe one or two people who've signed up for the open mic. Is that correct? But if you are out there and you want to share something. Oh, Kyoko's on. Hey, Kyoko. Please sign up. I think, Joy, am I right? We have 2 people who've signed up.
I see Sharon Brooks's image up there.
Did Sharon want to sign up for the open mic?
No, Sharon didn't. But hi, Mitsuye.
Okay, well, we're gonna go into a little conversation and with the poets, and then we'll open up for our 1 or 2 open mic signups. Oh, I see one person who sent it to me directly. That's why, Joy, you don't see it. Joy, I'm going to give you their name. Okay. But if you have a question, please go ahead and put it into the chat. You can also give us comments that we can read out loud. We have one that says, so wonderful to be here with you, Mom, Grandma, and all the great poets. And someone else said, my favorite line, air has no gender. Yes. Bravo to all. I concur. So what I'd like to ask folks, and Mitsu, I do have a specific question for you, but before that, wanted to give the opportunity to Micah and or Maiya and or Courtney to answer this question. Any of you are welcome to answer this question, any of the poets. So at this time of COVID-19, the pandemic, or as we are calling it here in California, safer at home, what is one thing you and your family or you and your friends are doing to stay creative, stay involved in community, or simply stay sane and healthy? So I'd like to open that up to Micah or Maiya or Courtney. Just one thing that you can share with us that you're practicing.
Well, hi, Tracy. I have been working with a group with taiko players across the country, actually. in an endeavor to put together a collaborative video of matsuri, which is one of the first pieces you learn typically when you start playing taiko, for tsuru for solidarity. And we're going to be showing that video in solidarity on June 6th during their upcoming, what was supposed to be the march that was going to be happening in Washington, D.C., but it's been postponed. So instead of having the march where we were going to have 100 plus taiko players at the march in solidarity with all of the others, we are putting together this taiko video to share our messages of hope, peace, and solidarity from across the country. And then similarly, I got to participate, I was honored to participate with Nobuko and Fandangobon in an Obon collaborative video as well, a Fandangobon collaborative. So hopefully people will tune in and join us on June 6th. I think it's a really important message, and definitely creativity at its finest being shared amongst community and family and friends.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Courtney. When do we get to see the Fandango Obon video?
June 6th.
June 6th. Oh, it's also going to be.
Yeah, yep. They're both part of the evening festivities or celebration of solidarity on June 6th. Then you can find out more on, I think it's Tsuru for Solid. Oh, chat this. Okay. I will put it in the chat for everyone.
That'd be great. Yeah, as people, myself included, want to know more about what's going to come up for June 6th and 7th, it'll be great to see the updates for how people can get involved and, you know, how people can also just support and witness. So thank you so much.
With the video, where will the video be available?
Sorry, the video, I'll put the link in the, I accidentally put a different link in the chat, but I'll put the link for Tsuru for Solidarity and the Tsuru Rising event in the chat for us.
And then hopefully soon there will be, you know, some social media stuff, and we'll all commit to sharing that just so that people are informed of all the cool things that are going to happen that weekend. So thank you so much, Courtney. Micah, Maya, do you have a take on that question?
Yeah.
How are you staying sane? How are you staying healthy? How are you staying creative?
I can talk to that if that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Japan is handling COVID a little bit differently than America is, and there's not really any like official social distancing policies in place, and there haven't been this whole time. But like in my program, we're discouraged from like socializing with each other right now because it's like dangerous. So I have been going for a lot of walks, and especially because it's like beautiful spring in Japan right now. I live near the ocean, so I can walk to the ocean or walk to like the tambo or whatever. And like, it's actually kind of wild because I haven't really been able to participate in like any poetry things since I moved out here. But after COVID happened and like America went online, like I can do readings like this, or like there's been a number of like open mics and like creative writing sessions that I've gotten to take a part in. So yeah, those are my things.
Thanks, Micah. Do you think that part of the difference in the way that Japan is handling the disease or the pandemic sort of plays into like natural social distancing, like the lack of maybe, you know, hugging people, or, you know, I don't know if certain practices already play into regular social distancing, culturally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely could be. I think there's also like something to do with like the government. Like the government doesn't have the power to mandate like quarantines here. So it's up to like cities and prefectures and like individual households to like do that for themselves, but they're not, like, the government can't do any, they don't have power to do that.
Yeah, okay. And so something fun you're doing, maybe were you able to celebrate your birthday in sort of a typical fashion with people in person?
I had one friend come over and she's the one who did this. So yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so still small grouping, good. Okay.
Yeah.
LA County would approve. All right. Maiya, what about you? Do you feel like answering that question? Something you're doing to maybe stay involved with community or stay healthy?
Well, I haven't been doing anything at such a large scale of planning a whole performance online thing, but I have been walking my dog lately, Lola. She's great. I've also I've been listening and watching BTS a lot too, to stay sane. They're a good group, so yeah, that's what I've been mostly doing.
I love it. This is like the perfect time for folks who don't know, right, to like learn about and catch up on the phenomenon of BTS. I think I will do that myself. And I think my friends and I were talking about this. Animals rule during this pandemic, right? They're getting so much attention. I'm surprised my cats have not been all over this screen by now. So yeah. Okay, so Mitsu, I have a question to toss to you. If you want to answer that previous question, that's totally fine as well. But we really were curious, specifically for you, as a beloved human rights activist, an educator, a veteran poet, and Nikkei community member, what words of advice and support in creative process do you have at this time in the world for these three young Nikkei you shared the poetic stage with tonight, as well as with the rest of us? We'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, it was so clearly demonstrated that they really don't need my advice to write beautiful poetry. I think that was just marvelous what we heard today. It was really wonderful, wasn't it? It was just, I was just very moved by their poetry. It was wonderful. So I don't really know whether they need my advice, but then I think that most writing manuals and guidelines, they tell you to write every day, even if you have nothing to say, you just write things down in a journal and stream of consciousness. But that hasn't really worked for me. I think that when something happens and when you're emotionally moved by something that happens to you or something that somebody says, you have this gut response. A good thing to do is just sit down immediately and write the way how you feel. That if you are angry about something, and then I think that I remember my first publisher was Al Tagari, who is the publisher of the Shameless Hussy Press. She published my first camp notes for the first time. She said, well, people often ask me, why don't I write happy poems? And that all my poems are angry, about being a female, or she was writing during the women's movement. And she said, well, the thing is, the only time that I sit down and stomp back into my study and start writing is when I get angry about something that happens in the world or something that someone says. But then when something happy happens to me, I just get together with my friends and we go out and drink and celebrate. And so I don't slink into the corner of my room and start writing. And that was why all of her poems were very unhappy ones. But I think that a good thing is that when you respond, as many of you have done in today's poems, you could really feel this gut reaction that they had to the words that they're just beautiful words. I just really was very moved by their poetry. When something happens that moves you in any which way, when you respond, you have this very gut response to something that somebody says and something that makes you think. And I think that because my parents were Issei, my mother spoke only Japanese. My father was bilingual, but they were very culturally very different from our own upbringing, the Nisei's upbringing, right? And so we had a lot of clashes and things that you really respond to that seem very odd or crazy, or and those are the times when you sit down and write. And I think that probably when your creative juices start moving and you respond to something, you're angry, you're curious, you wonder what was that about? Well, that was an odd story that you told me. I didn't understand it. You were puzzled, or whatever emotional response you had to an event. I think that that's a good time to sit down and write. And that seems to be it works for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really understanding and sage advice as well. I was just having a conversation a couple weeks ago with two other poets, and we were all sort of commiserating about how right now we're being asked these questions about free time. Like, oh, you have so much free time now. Are you writing a lot? And we're feeling the world on fire around us is what we're doing. We will write later or at a moment that makes sense.
I know, but while we were talking about what are we doing with our time, well, we're being very creative by baking. My granddaughter's baking bread. Yes. So we're eating a lot.
Yes.
We're trying to start ballooning out. Like we're going to
yes.
Eat, But that's one thing we're doing is eating a lot.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we're being creative in different ways, or maybe we're even writing things that we didn't expect to write at this time. I feel like things are just coming out in different ways, and I can't really control it. Yeah. But thank you so much. We are almost at our time, unfortunately, but I think we have 3 folks who have signed up, and we probably just have a little bit of time to accommodate those 3. We'll ask that you share about 3 to 4 minutes, including your introduction, so probably just one piece. And Joy, do you want to do the honors? Did you want to do a sort of random selection for the order?
Sure. I would love an excuse to use my cat hat that I have here. So I'm going to put the 3 names I wrote on these pieces of paper.
Yes.
And we have, Kay, Shoda. So I'm going to spotlight your video, Kay.
All right.
Can
you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. I haven't read for a long time. So this poem called Homeless, it came from my interaction with my dad. So this is from my dad and the Shota family. Homeless. Time for a visit to the barber's, I tell my dad. Don't go too short this time. You looked homeless the last time you did it. He, as a matter of fact, said, I am homeless. And he meant it. I laughed, then felt the truth that struck my heart, then resonance, replying silently, I, too, am homeless. You were born in Lahaina on the island of Maui, second generation in America. When you were 10, the FBI came and took your father away. Executive Order 9066. With just a suitcase each, your mother and 7 children were shipped to the mainland, then to Jerome, Arkansas, away from your home, away from your father, in an internment camp, living among strangers, had to make do. Shogunai. Not much we can do. Gaman. Persevere. The last year, the government moved all of you to another camp, Tule Lake, California. Reunited with your father, and when the war was over, instead of moving back to Hawaii, the whole family moved to Japan, back to the countryside. Then your siblings scattered. Some remained in Japan, some returned to Hawaii. You and your older brother joined the U.S. military and served. And while stationed in Japan, you met and married my mother, eventually returning to the States after retiring as a civilian, moving in with your son in California. Now you are in a board and care facility, in and out of the hospital. After your first big transition, you said to me, "Boy, that was a rough boat ride." A few months later, you woke and asked the caregiver for a suitcase. Because you dreamed of being evacuated, you were full of rage, directed at me, because I put you in prison. Your best friend accused me of elder abuse, threatened to take me to court for this injustice. I was clueless then, only now realize that your body remembers everything. When you became homeless, when your whole family became homeless, you never grieved this loss out loud. As much as it pains me, I hear you and honor your journey now. And I too am homeless. I roamed back and forth all my life, born on a U.S. Air Force base in Tachikawa, Japan, from Japan to America, from America to Japan and back, Tokyo to Kyoto, modern to ancient capital, off to the East Coast, to driving solo 3,000 miles with only what fit in my car to the West. I live in the house that you shared with your wife, son, and grandchildren, but this is temporary. I am homeless, but I am closer to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Very powerful. Thank you so much. It's always something to hear when like a piece of remembrance also becomes like a moment of reflection and acknowledgement and homage and really like seeing your father, seeing your family. So yeah, thank you for the courage to share that. You mentioned that you haven't read in a long time, so that's very special that you put yourself out there. So really, thank you so much. We are lucky to have 2 more folks who signed up. So Joy.
Yes.
Where's that cat hat?
We actually have just one more person after all, but I'm going to still act as if I'm drawing it out.
You know?
So I want to welcome Eric Thompson. So I'm going to spotlight your video now and you can take yourself off mute. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is from San Bernardino, California. I appreciate the opportunity to share on this platform, and it's been gorgeous so far. I've been impressed. I go by Eric Devon when I write. I'm not sure where the Thompson came from, but I just want to share a short poem. It's called "One Day Perhaps to Plant Again." I used to watch the news, thankful that I did not live in a war-torn nation where my survival would likely depend on how well hidden I could remain, moving from building crumbles to building burnt out, crouching soft, so very aware of the raging doom, waging war on all things beautiful. An overdusted hummingbird, caked in ash and the thick char of destruction, flitting so delicate from broken pistil, stem, and seed. So very aware of the raging doom, waging war on all things beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Eric Devon. Thank you very much. I think, it's so cool to hear all these different voices sort of making choices on what to read at this moment. And I think it's not just the moment that we write these things, but it's the moment that we decide to share them. That it's always an insight to what is happening in our world and in the world at this time. And I think we've gone from humor to sorrow to anger and back. And so I just really want to say thank you to all of you who shared so much today. And let's unmute and give a big hand to our open mic readers, Kei Shota and Eric Devon, and also to all of our features, Micah Tasaka, Courtney Ozaki, Maiya Kuida-Osumi, and Mitsuye Yamada. Thank you so much. This is an honor to host and to publish your work. And folks, if you haven't published yet on Nikkei Uncovered, please, send us your work and reach out. Or if you know of a poet, a Nikkei poet somewhere in the world, let us know and connect us. Thank you again so much. And I'm going to turn it back to Joy and JANM.
Hello. Thank you so much also to everyone. This has been a truly incredible evening, and I think exactly what I needed in this time. So thank you so much to Tracy for emceeing, to Mitsuye, to Courtney and Maya and Micah and all of the poets that shared tonight. So just want to encourage you to keep in touch. I'm going to share right now a brief survey that if you could fill that out, it would help us so much to help provide content like this and continue to make every program better and better. Not sure how we could top this one, but still would really appreciate you filling that out, and we'll send up a follow-up email as well. Definitely check out Discover Nikkei. It's going to be discovernikkei.org, and that has content in, as we mentioned, English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese. So thank you so much to everyone for coming, and also check out janm.org. That's our website that has all of our JANM at home content. And if you liked what you saw today, please consider financially supporting JANM, whether that's through membership or a donation. Your support really keeps us going, especially in times like this when we can't physically be together. But as soon as we can, we'll be gathering again and be able to put on programs like this in person. Thank you so much again to everyone for coming. I'll send out all the links again, and see you next time. Thank you.